We all have that voice in our heads pointing out what we're doing wrong or where we're not enough. Sometimes it feels like motivation, pushing us forward, but most of the time it's just self-criticism dressed up as productivity. In this video, we're going to explore why accepting your imperfect self isn't giving up. In fact, it's often the first step toward real growth, quiet peace, and meaningful progress. If you find this content interesting, please leave a like and subscribe for more videos like it. Somewhere along the way, a lot of us learned that being good meant being perfect, that mistakes weren't just part of learning, they were something to be embarrassed by, something to fix quickly and quietly before anyone noticed. And now, with everything online looking polished and finished, it's easy to feel like everyone else figured out something that you missed. So when you're hard on yourself, it doesn't usually feel cruel. It feels responsible. You tell yourself you're just being disciplined, that you're holding yourself to a higher standard. But that standard keeps moving. You fix one thing and then another. You improve, but you never get there. And somehow, being better turns into never feeling good enough. We usually measure ourselves by what other people can see: grades, promotions, likes, and followers. And when reality doesn't line up with those things, we take it personally. Even small missteps spike tension and make that inner critic louder. The one that makes you feel like you should just try harder, do better, and fix it before anyone notices. So, you spend hours tweaking a video or rewriting an email, not because it makes the work better, but because it feels like armor against judgment. That extra effort, though, most of the time it's not progress, it's fear in disguise. Perfectionism quietly blocks us from trying new things. Mistakes feel threatening, so it's easier to just quit while we're ahead. You might tell yourself, I'll start when I'm ready. But here's the thing, waiting until you feel ready is a trap. Action always feels scarier than planning. Always. Self-compassion isn't just a woo-woo idea, it's hardwired. It's how your nervous system nudges you toward growth instead of shutting you down. Accepting imperfection doesn't mean just giving up on getting better. It just means noticing that mistakes are part of the journey. Funny enough, letting go of perfection often makes you better, more creative, more capable, more willing to try. The energy you spend obsessing over tiny details could go into actually doing something or learning something or creating something that matters. Try treating yourself like a friend instead of a critic. Notice the good in yourself instead of cataloging every flaw. That simple shift changes how your brain reacts and turning anxiety into curiosity instead of freezing you in place. The truth about perfection is that it's a myth. Culture, school, social media, they all push impossible standards. And when you see that, it becomes easier to give yourself some grace and tolerate mistakes and actually do the things you want. Ironically, it's in those imperfect actions that growth and freedom really show up. Self-criticism sucks. At first, it pretends to be motivation, the voice that says keep going, do better. But over time, it gets heavy. Every tiny mistake starts feeling like a mark against who you are. Even when you do something well, that quiet whisper keeps saying it's not enough. You know that feeling when you finish a task and instead of letting yourself feel a little pride, your brain jumps straight to what you should have done differently? It seems small, but it piles up. Every day it chips away at your energy, making the next thing feel even harder to start. Self-criticism doesn't just drain motivation, it changes how you feel about doing anything at all. Your brain starts linking action with judgment, so even small risks feel heavy. You hesitate and you hold back and you stay in the comfort zone. Judging yourself for not doing something perfectly the first time slowly grinds your self-improvement to a halt. And then there's the emotional weight, guilt, frustration, and shame, all quietly stacking up in the background. And suddenly even tiny tasks feel huge because every little action is filtered through that relentless inner critic. You might start journaling or meditating to feel calmer, but instead of peace, your thoughts sneak in. The silence you were hoping for gets crowded by self-criticism, and suddenly the practice meant to help just feels like another mirror showing all your flaws. Motivation drains instead of building. But wait, there's more. Praise can feel undeserved. Helpful advice feels like proof you're not good enough. And your brain starts treating learning as a threat rather than an opportunity. And the cycle keeps spinning in circles. One way to break the cycle is to notice your self-talk. Pay attention when your inner voice gets harsh or judgmental and just observe it, without agreeing and without arguing. Or just tell it to shut up. Remember, self-criticism is normal. It's not necessarily something to fix. When you see it that way, you can start to respond differently. You celebrate the small wins and redirect the inner critic with a quiet hand. Give yourself permission to act. Letting yourself be imperfect doesn't block growth, it actually makes it possible. Perfectionism isn't just a mindset, it sneaks in as a habit that quietly slows you down. You might tell yourself, I'll start when I'm ready, or it has to be perfect before anyone sees it. But the thing is, ready and perfect almost never show up at the same time. The result? Projects stall, opportunities slip away, and momentum fades, and you're left wondering why nothing ever gets done. You plan a video, a project, or even a small essay for weeks, tweaking every idea and outline, and still never actually start. It feels productive, but it's really just a way of protecting yourself, avoiding the risk of imperfection. Your brain treats perfectionism like a survival strategy. Mistakes trigger the same alarm signals as real threats. That procrastination, over-editing, or endless preparation, it's just your brain trying to protect you from imaginary tigers. But the thing is, the more you chase perfection, the more you train yourself to fear it, instead of building confidence. Microtasking can help, but perfectionism often sneaks in. You break a project into small steps, yet insist each step has to be perfect. That extra pressure defeats the whole point. Suddenly, even tiny actions feel risky and motivation starts slipping away. Creativity and learning are messy by nature. Mistakes aren't just unavoidable, they're essential. But perfectionism cuts out all the messy middle, leaving indecision and unfinished work in its place. You might avoid putting something online because it isn't perfect enough. And while you wait, momentum fades, opportunities slip by, and valuable feedback never comes. The very standard meant to ensure quality becomes the thing that blocks your growth. Accepting imperfection isn't about lowering your standards, it's about shifting your focus. Action becomes the teacher. Trying, even messily, often teaches more than perfect planning ever could. Even small imperfect efforts can build confidence and take the edge off of fear. When you recognize how perfectionism blocks you, you give yourself permission to start before you feel ready. You stop waiting for clarity or perfect timing. Momentum becomes a priority and motivation grows naturally from movement. Self-compassion isn't just a nice idea, it's a tool. Being kind to yourself isn't a weakness. It's a way to restore energy and motivation when perfectionism or self-criticism starts to weigh you down. Imagine making a mistake at work or in a creative project. That harsh inner voice might replay it over and over, leaving you stuck in tense. Self-compassion says something different. This happens to everyone. I can learn from it and keep going. That small shift eases the mental load and frees up energy for the next step. Being kind to yourself doesn't just feel good, it actually changes how your brain reacts to setbacks. It signals safety instead of threat, letting tension ease and your focus stay sharp. Pausing to notice your effort, celebrating small wins, or reframing mistakes as opportunities to grow are simple ways to remind your brain it's safe to act, even imperfectly. Honestly, reframing is one of the hardest things in the moment because that inner critic is so automatic, but each small attempt chips away at its hold. Think of self-compassion as a buffer against being overwhelmed. When mistakes and flaws are expected instead of feared, you can actually dive into tasks without that heavy mental resistance. The energy that used to get wasted on self-judgment gets freed up, ready to be spent on action instead. For example, maybe you plan to exercise but skip a day. Instead of spiraling into guilt or avoiding the next workout, a self-compassionate response, one day off won't undo progress, I can start again tomorrow, keeps motivation steady and prevents burnout. Except for some of us who one day off means never again. Self-compassion also opens the door to honest self-reflection. You can notice areas to improve without turning every observation into self-punishment. That balance quietly fosters learning, creativity, and long-term growth. In practice, self-compassion isn't soft or passive, it's active. It's a tool you can actually use to stay resilient, keep focus, and cut through the hidden toll of perfectionism and self-criticism. Accepting yourself imperfectly doesn't slow you down, it helps you move faster. Accepting imperfection sounds simple in theory, but the real power comes when you bring it into daily life. It's not about being suddenly perfect, it's about building routines, habits, and mindsets that welcome a little mess while still moving forward. Try small, imperfect goals. Draft a rough version of a project before finishing it. By letting yourself act without needing perfection, you start building both momentum and confidence at the same time. This is where a lot of us get stuck. We know imperfection is okay, but we still overplan, delay, or obsess over small details. The key isn't in just understanding it, it's practicing it. Using your natural tendencies instead of fighting them can actually make you more productive. Daily reminders help. Sticky notes, journaling, or even saying out loud, "I'm focusing on effort, not outcome." These little cues slowly train your brain to reward action instead of critique. Just do the thing, even if it's not perfect. At the end of each day, try jotting down one thing you did imperfectly but still accomplished. Over time, these little reflections shift your perspective from focusing on failure to noticing growth. Boundaries matter too. Limiting exposure to unrealistic comparisons, whether it's social media, coworkers, or even well-meaning advice, helps your brain stay out of perfectionism mode. Accepting yourself also means protecting your mental space. Accepting imperfection creates space to experiment. When mistakes feel normal instead of threatening, risk-taking gets easier, learning speeds up, and opportunities that once felt too risky suddenly seem possible. Getting comfortable with imperfection isn't a one-time thing, it's an ongoing practice. Combine self-compassion, realistic expectations, and small, good enough actions, and what once felt like a flaw becomes a quiet superpower. Motivation, confidence, and creativity all start to flourish when you give yourself permission to be messy. Quick fourth wall break. It turns out that reading a script without sounding like you're reading a script is a learned skill, which I am learning. So, thank you if you're still here. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, please leave a like and subscribe and leave your thoughts and comments down below. I'll see you in the next one.